Alright guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the following champions who are going to remain champion in 2026. Starting off with heavyweight with Tom Aspinall. I think Tom Aspinall will stay the heavyweight champion. And I know that sounds a bit controversial, especially since how the last fight went. But, the problem is, and this is where I've kind of, came to conclusion with the UFC fan, with MMA fans as a whole, is that for the most part, most of them have an IQ under 20 and they don't know what cognitive thinking is. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate that that's the case, but that's how MMA fans are in general. They can't put two and two together. Remember when everyone and their mother was talking about how Tom Aspinall was going to fly through Ciryl Gane and he was going to kill Ciryl Gane in the first round? And Tom Aspinall said himself during the build up to the fight, he was saying, Ciryl Gane is a tough matchup and I'm not going to go fight through him to the first round. I have a feeling this fight's going to go all 5 rounds. And I'm gonna try to mix some martial arts and try to, beat him dominantly over the course of 5 rounds. And if you watch Tom Aspinall's video of the build-up of the fight, in the video, his dad clearly states that this fight is not gonna go 5 rounds. So I want you to kind of pace yourself throughout the 5 rounds, survive and beat him over the course of 5 rounds. And he also said to mix the martial arts. So even if you don't manage to lay the takedowns, you keep it in Ciryl Gane's head that the threat of takedown is always there, so it can keep him hesitant, so that he's not just constantly pushing with the striking. And then the fight happens, and because the fight goes over 3 minutes of the first round, everyone and their mom switches up on Aspinall and is like, oh, this guy, he sucks now. He quit. The fight was gonna be too tough on him. If you watch the whole fight and you look at the significance, right? Ciryl Gane only had like 3 more significant fights than Aspinall. It was competitive back and forth. Ciryl Gane tries to poke Aspinall like 5 different times in the fight, and then he ends up landing a double eye poke, and now Tom has to get surgery because of it. You don't reach the pinnacle of the UFC ladder with the mentality of, oh, when things get tough, I'm gonna quit. That's not how this works. If that was the case for Tom Aspinall, he wouldn't step in on short notice to fight Sergey Pavlovich. He wouldn't fight freaking Curtis Braid and try to defend his interim belt. If you have the option to fight for the title or to defend your interim belt in the meantime waiting to fight for the title, and you choose to defend the interim title because you're itching to fight that badly, it goes to show how much of a freaking dog you are. Moving on to light heavyweight, I don't think Alex Perry is going to be the heavyweight champ. Not because I think he's going to lose it. In fact, if he does fight Carlos Ulberg to defend his title, I think he destroys Ulberg in the first round. But the reason I think Alex won't be champ is because he's going to 100% move up to heavyweight in 2026. And I think Yuri or Magomed is going to be the champion by the end of 2026. If Yuri fights Magomed for the vacant title, I think Yuri beats him. And, there's a possibility that Ulberg beats Alex, but I just don't see that happening. Moving on to middleweight, and I know for a fact that Khamzat Chimaev is going to remain the middleweight champion if he fights this year. I don't even know if he's going to fight this year. Hopefully he fights more than one time, but that might be asking for too much. Khamzat Chimaev pretty much is leagues above everyone else in the middleweight division. His grappling alone has carried them to levels. There truly isn't anyone who could beat Khamzat in the grappling, and the only person who brings a slightly competitive fight to Khamzat is Fluffy Hernandez, and I do want to see that matchup. It's very intriguing, but I don't know what's going to happen. Right now, they have Imavov is most likely going to be the next scheduled fight against Khamzat, and I think Khamzat absolutely clears Imavov in the first or second round. After that, you could make the argument that Hernandez wins, but I still don't think Hernandez wins. I think even if it's competitive, I think Khamzat Chimaev beats Hernandez in the grappling department, especially if he continues to train with Armin and continues to train with those guys with the same camp that he trained with against DDP, and with the way he just freaking dominated DDP. Call it boring all you want. I agree. I do think it was a really boring fight. It was still a domination. So with that being said, I think Khamzat Chimaev, he remains champion. And I get it. Lots of people don't like Khamzat being a champ because of how inactive he is. I understand it. Trust me, guys, I hate inactivity as much as you guys. And the other thing is, which I don't understand, is I'm with the fighters. I'm with anyone who complains about fighter pay. I think UFC fighter pay is absolute trash. But I also think a part of it is when fighters like champions fight once a year. That, like, how are you going to complain about fighter pay but then only fight once a year when you have the ability to fight multiple times a year? UFC fighter pay is trash, and I'm never going to defend it. But I also think it's to some degree, if you're Khamzat Chimaev and you take no damage during your DDP fight, you could have had another fight by now. Why not fight again if that makes sense? But yeah, I think Chimaev clears out Imavov, and I think he clears out all of the top 5, and I think he remains the champion for 2026. Moving on to welterweight. Right now, the welterweight champ is Usman Makhachev, and I don't think there's anyone else who's going to beat him. Although there is very, very tough matchups in the 170 division. Michael Morales, you know, it takes one good shot for him to put down Islam, especially since we've seen Islam get chinned in the past. Like, it could definitely happen. And we just saw Morales chin a grappler in Sean Brady, so it can definitely happen. But you know what? For the uncertainty aspect, I'm going to say Islam beats Morales, but I do think Morales has a good chance. Plus, I don't think Morales has, I don't know how good Morales' grappling is, so you got to keep that in mind. I'm positive Islam beats freaking Prates, even though Prates is one of my favorite fighters currently. If Prates is getting taken down by Leon, imagine what would happen to him against Islam, especially after we saw Islam did to JDM. And there's no other, and Ian Gary, right? Because those are like kind of the top people that are in title contention. So Ian Gary has really, really good takedown defense yet. We saw it with Bilal and we saw it with Shafkat. The only problem is Shafkat and Bilal are not Islam Makhachev, but we saw that with the JDM fight. Bilal couldn't take down JDM, and every time he did land that takedown, JDM would just find a way to get back up, but he couldn't do that with Islam. There's levels to it, and clearly Islam has reached the pinnacle of them. And you know, Gary can defend the Bilal's takedowns all he wants. I think it's a whole different level when it comes to Islam. Islam just has different tricks that Ian Gary might have not seen before, or Ian Gary can't prepare for, or Ian Gary might not be able to counter that. I know for a fact Islam would be able to bring him to the ground. You know, although I do think it would be slightly competitive, I think Islam absolutely beats Gary. So if you're asking me, unless Ilia Topuria moves up to 170 after defending the belt and they make this super fight in 2026, I don't see anyone in the welterweight division being Islam. Speaking of Ilia Topuria, lightweight, there's only one fighter in my mind who could beat Ilia Topuria, and that's Arman Tsurikin, if that fight gets booked. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I really don't see a world where Arman and Ilia is getting booked in 2006. Call me crazy, but hear me out. Gaethje, Patty are fighting for the interim belt. Ilia is not going to fight until probably like April, May, June, around that time. So that's around summertime, or summertime, and until that happens, he's gonna have to fight the winner of the interim belt. So that fight happens, then you wait another 2-3 months, and you think that the Arman fight could happen. The problem is, knowing the UFC and knowing how Arman, like a genius, headbutted Dan Hooker, and that kind of ruined his chances to get the title shot, because now the UFC are gonna be like, well, how can we trust this guy to not control his temper and ruin an event, right? With that being said, the UFC is 100% gonna expect him to fight someone else before he gets a chance at the title. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to see the Arman Ilya fight, I don't think it happens this year. What's going to happen is they're going to have Arman probably fight the winner of Max and Charles, and they're going to have Ilya fight the winner of Gaethje and Patty. And if Arman manages to beat the winner of Charles and Max, you can make the argument that he fights for the title this year, but I don't see the UFC letting that happen. So if that's the case, then Ilya remains champion, because the winner of Patty and Gaethje is not beating Ilya. And if there's a chance that Arman and Ilya fights, there's a very, very high chance that Arman becomes a champion because of how good he is. I still think Ilya beats him, though. I still have confidence in my boy to beat Arman, but Arman's a phenomenal fighter, so it's a 50-50 going in. And there's a very, very good chance that Arman becomes a champion if they fight this year. I still think Ilya remains a 2026 champion, or remains champion all throughout 2026. Moving on to featherweight. Who do you got for featherweight? Who is going to remain champion featherweight? It's not going to be Volkanovski, because Volkanovski is going to retire this year. It kind of sucks that for his retirement fight, we have to watch freaking Diego Lopez and Volk fight again. I really wish we would have gotten to see like a fresh matchup with Leon Murphy. That would have been nice. Unfortunately, UFC sucks at giving us the matches we want to see, so we're gonna have to see that. But basically, I think Volk beats Lopez, and I think after that he retires. And then for the vacant belt, Leon Murphy is either gonna fight Lopez again, or they're gonna give him Evlev and Lopez the fight for the vacant belt, and then the winner of that is going to be champion. So if I had to put my money on it, the winner of, or the champion of 2026 is going to be either Murphy or Evlev, because they're going to be fighting for the vacant belt. And you can make the argument that there's a chance Diego beats Volk. Even if Diego beats Volk, like, it still proves my point that he's not going to be a champion by the end of 2026. But I really, really want to see my boy Volk win. I really don't want to see him lose. I want him to retire on top, because, you know, I want him to cement himself as the greatest featherweight of all time. Arguably top 5 greatest fighters of all time. Maybe, I don't know. That's debatable. Moving on to bantamweight. Does Peter Yan remain the champion in 2026? And in my honest opinion, after the way he just dismantled Merab, there's not a single fighter in the bantamweight division who can put up that type of masterclass performance to beat Peter Yan. We all thought that Merab was going to reign supreme against the bantamweight division for a long, long time, and the fact that Peter Petr was able to 49-46 him. Like, who can do that? Who's gonna be able to beat that version of Petr Yan? You could argue with the way Sean O'Malley was able to have a close fight and beat Petr Yan, even though I thought Yan got robbed. It was a very close fight, and over the course of 5 rounds, you can argue that maybe Sean O'Malley pulls it out, and maybe you never know, right? It's a fight, but I still think Petr Yan beats Sean O'Malley. Petr Yan definitely beats Omar, because Omar's main thing is that although he has good striking, it's not on the level of Petr Yan, and his main thing is grappling, and Petr Yan has phenomenal grappling and phenomenal anti-grappling, right? Phenomenal defense and offense, as you saw in the Merab fight. And the only chance he has is, the only person I can see beating him is Merab in the trilogy, but I don't see that happening. I see Petr Yan beating Merab in the trilogy, especially if he's able to have a similar performance to the one we just saw. So Petr Yan says the champion 2026. And you know what I realized something, that we have, like, for the most part, aside from a couple champions, lots of the champions that we have right now, for the most part, I think are going to remain champions all throughout 2026. It just goes to show you how dominant some of the champions we have in UFC right now. Khamzat, Tom Aspinall, Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, all those guys are phenomenal champions. Like, we're right now in the golden age of the UFC, where a champion doesn't just come and go anymore. When a champion comes, he's really cementing himself as one of the greats. And not just that, we're at a point with Islam and with Ilia and Petr Yan and Volk too, although Volk will be leaving, where these guys are now in the argument of the greatest of all times. Obviously it's always going to be up for debate, and every person has a different opinion on that. But if Islam has a couple more wins, he could be the greatest of all time. I'm ranting on, and this is all besides the point. But now I'm going to move on to the last division. That's flyweight. And as much as I want to say, well, okay, this one kind of, it depends a lot on whether Pantoja comes back this year. If Pantoja comes back at the end of 2026 and fights Van, or the winner of Van and Kopp for the title, Pantoja wins, I'm pretty confident that Pantoja will win and he'll be champion again. Let's just say he doesn't come back, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's very, very high chance he's not going to come back. With the way his elbow snapped, I don't see it happening. I think he's going to need all of 2026 to heal, especially with how bad that injury was. The only person who can beat Joshua Van, in my opinion, I don't think Tatsuro Taira beats him. Although Tatsuro Taira has great grappling, I don't see him beating Joshua Van. It would be very, very close, but I do think Van edges it out, is Manel Kopp. With the way Manel Kopp was able to knock out Brandon Royval, the same guy who had a 3-round war with Joshua Van, the same guy who went 4 rounds with Pantoja and was able to put it on throughout those 4 rounds, the fact that he got knocked out in the first round by Manel Kopp, I can see Van getting in chin. And as much as I really want Van to win against Manel Kopp, I do think Van remains the champion in 2026. Call me crazy all you want. That's only if Pantoja doesn't come back. If Pantoja doesn't come back, Van remains as champion. I do think he gets through Manel Kopp. And if they do book the Tatsuro Taira fight on top of that, I do think he gets through to Tatsuro Taira. And, if Horiguchi can win his next fight, I don't think Van will have 3 fights this year. Maybe. But like I said, if Alexander Pantoja does not come back this year, I truly believe that Joshua Van will remain the champ and get through all of the title defenses that he has until Alexander Pantoja come back. Anyways, that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.